I've decided for fun to do a quick sketch of my breakfast, well, second, or perhaps even third breakfast. And off camera I did a basic pencil sketch that just kind of placed things where they should be. And now with my Lamy Safari fountain pen filled with an ink called Lexington Gray, made by an ink company called Noodler's Ink, I'm going to trace some of the outlines. I could do it all in watercolor, and in a way I like that better, but I find that for travel sketching, an ink line makes things faster because you don't need as many layers of colors to define your subject. The ink does that job for you. So this is a waterproof ink, but you do have to wait a little bit, otherwise the ink bleeds into the watercolor, which may be an effect one wants, but I don't. Also, once it's dry, I'm going to erase the pencil lines underneath. Again, it's something you may choose not to do. It's a matter of preference. I think I don't mind pencil lines usually, but I think in this case, given the ink, it might get too busy. I just bought this croissant and it's taking all my willpower not to eat it, but I did eat another item that was supposed to make it into this sketch, so can't eat everything before you paint it. So I'm keeping my pen sketch kind of loose. And I apologize if what you see is not what I see, but hopefully the drawing will still make sense and you can see the subject in the background. It's just that the perspective is different from mine. But you know what? That might be a symbol of life itself. We don't all see the same thing. So in this case, there's an objective issue, which is the viewpoint. But maybe there is no such thing as a objective viewpoint. Big things and small. Alright, before I overdo it, I'm going to stop. So in watercolor, we usually go from light to dark. And so I'm going to start with some yellow. This is Transparent Yellow by Turner. And I'm just going to put it a little bit in different places. And then I'm going to move on with the raw sienna, which for some reason, and rather pretentiously, I think, it's called Monte Amiata Natural Sienna in the Daniel Smith line. I forgive them the pretentiousness because it is the best raw sienna I know. It's quite transparent, it granulates beautifully, and it is named after a town, mountain in Italy where I'm from, so it's okay, but it is a little bit annoying when you have to write it out. It's longer than it needs to be. And then I'm gonna go in with my transparent orange, which, as you can see, since I took a lot of it, it's not very transparent or orange. I'm going to put some of that here on the tomato, but then the tomato will go back with Perylene Scarlet. Put some of that scarlet here. Then I'm going to stay with the reds and add some burnt sienna to my croissant. I'm in my travel mode, so I try to clean the brushes as little as possible because you never know how much water you have, even though I'm in an apartment right now and I have all the water I need, but it's just a habit. Also, I'm not spreading, I'm just dipping straight from the palette into the painting. It'd probably be better to dilute it. And finally, a little bit of sap green. I never leave quite as much white as I'd like. I get carried away by the color. Just adding some water here. And also here. Oh, and I forgot a little bit of green for these tomato leaves and stem. And I'm gonna let this dry. The shadows in this scene are not especially obvious, but I think I'm going to put some in just to anchor painting a little bit. It really helps. Give a sense of light. And I'm going to do another layer just to change it up. I'm going to start with green. This is just sap green that I'm using in diluted form over the leaf of the mandarin. I paid for this mandarin, by the way. I did not steal it as I did with the one in St. Paul. I had one from the same batch and it's nowhere nearly as good as one just picked from the tree. But it's traveled from Spain, so can't expect the same amount of freshness as something just picked. add a little burnt sienna to this little indentation. And just to the shadow side. And I'm adding the Perylene Scarlet to the orange. Trying to keep a sense of the highlight to the tomato. And finally, burnt sienna. To this delicious looking croissant that I bought from a very fancy pastry shop here in Lille. Just gorgeous place. But you know, I think it's €1 or less for this masterpiece. Lille, by the way, it's a beautiful city that I highly recommend you visit. And it was nice this morning to be the only tourist, which I assure you is not the same in Nice, where it seems like everyone's a tourist. A lot of Italians. Great, I'm done with this. And I am going to use, I added some ultramarine blue to that red mixture, so it graded out. I'm just gonna letter Lille. And then here, my signature. And January 2000.